The year is 480 BC. Across the ancient world, a shadow moves west. From the plains of Persia to the shores of the Aegean Sea, an empire gathers its strength. An army unlike anything the world has ever seen begins to march. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers, infantry from Persia, cavalry from the steppes, archers from distant provinces, engineers, supply trains, warships moving along the coast like a floating city. At its head rides a king who commands nearly half the known world. Xerxes I, son of Darius, king of kings, ruler of the Persian Empire. 9 years earlier, the Persians had suffered humiliation at the hands of the Greeks at the Battle of Marathon. A small coalition of city-states had done the unthinkable. They had defeated the army of Persia. Xerxes has come to erase that memory. He does not intend to win a battle. He intends to crush a civilization. Bridges of boats are thrown across the Hellespont, linking Asia to Europe. Roads are carved through mountains. Supply depots stretch across entire regions. Ancient historians will argue over the numbers for centuries. Some say 200,000 soldiers, others say far more. But one fact remains undisputed. The army marching into Greece is the largest force the ancient world has ever seen. City after city submits without resistance. Many Greek states decide that survival is better than defiance. They send envoys to Persia. They offer earth and water, the ancient symbols of surrender. The message spreads quickly. The Persians are coming, and they are unstoppable. But not every city kneels. In the rugged lands of southern Greece, two rival powers make a desperate decision. Athens, the rising naval power of the Greek world, and Sparta, the most feared warrior society in all of Greece. They know something the rest of Greece does not want to admit. If Xerxes conquers Greece, the independence of every city will end. Greek law, Greek religion, Greek freedom, all of it will disappear beneath Persian rule. But resisting Persia seems impossible. Xerxes commands an army that dwarfs them. No open battlefield can save them. So the Greeks search for something else. Not victory, delay. A place where numbers mean nothing. A place where the Persian army cannot surround them. A place where a small force might stand against an empire. They find it in a narrow strip of land between mountain and sea. A place the locals call Thermopylae, the Hot Gates, a pass so narrow that only a few hundred men can fight at once. Here, the Persian army will be forced to slow. Here, the Greeks will make their stand, and at the head of that stand will march 300 Spartans. Not an army, not a kingdom, just 300 warriors led by their king, Leonidas. They know the odds. They know the Persian army could crush them if it breaks through. They know they may never return home. But Spartans do not measure victory the same way others do. For them, honor matters more than survival. And in a few days, at a narrow mountain pass in northern Greece, 300 men will face the greatest army on earth. And the world will remember what happened there for the next 2,000 years. Before the battle even begins, the outcome seems certain. The Persian Empire is not simply another kingdom marching to war. It is the largest political power the ancient world has ever known. From the deserts of Egypt to the mountains of Central Asia, from the rivers of Mesopotamia to the coasts of Anatolia, the empire of Xerxes I stretches across continents. And now that empire is moving toward Greece with a single objective: submission. The army that crosses into Europe is not just large, it is overwhelming. Persian infantry march in disciplined ranks, shields of wicker and spears glinting in the sun. Archers move beside them in vast numbers. Men trained to darken the sky with arrows. Cavalry patrol the flanks. Riders from the eastern steppes whose horses have carried them across thousands of miles of empire. Behind them come engineers, siege crews, servants, and supply trains that stretch farther than the eye can see. Along the coast sails an equally massive fleet, hundreds of ships moving parallel to the army, carrying reinforcements and provisions. Ancient writers would later claim the army numbered over 1 million men. Modern historians believe the true number was smaller. But even the lowest estimates remain staggering, perhaps 150,000 soldiers, perhaps more. Against them stand the Greeks. And the Greeks are not united. The Greek world is a patchwork of independent city-states, each jealous of its own power, its own traditions, its own rivalries. Athens distrusts Sparta. Sparta distrusts Athens. Other cities simply hope the storm will pass them by. Some have already chosen to submit. Others remain undecided. When the Persian envoys arrive demanding earth and water, several cities give it willingly. Why fight an empire that has conquered everything in its path? But in Sparta and Athens, the answer is different. Spartan law forbids submission. A Spartan warrior is trained from childhood to believe that retreat is worse than death. A Spartan mother sends her son to battle with only one instruction: return with your shield or on it. Athens, meanwhile, has another reason to resist. If Persia conquers Greece, Athens will lose not just independence, but identity. Its growing experiment with democracy would vanish under imperial rule. So the two rivals do something extraordinary. They cooperate. A Greek alliance is formed, but the numbers remain grim. When the Greeks gather their forces, they can field perhaps 7,000 men at Thermopylae, a coalition of soldiers from different cities: Spartans, Thespians, Corinthians, Arcadians, Phocians, brave men, trained fighters. But against the Persian host, they are barely a speed bump. No one expects them to defeat Xerxes, not even the Greeks themselves. Their objective is something far more modest and far more desperate: delay the Persian advance. Every day that the Persian army is slowed gives the Greek cities time to prepare. Athens must evacuate its population. The Greek fleet must organize a defense in the nearby straits of Artemisium. Fortifications must be strengthened. All of this requires time that Thermopylae might provide. The location itself is their greatest advantage. The pass of Thermopylae is a natural choke point. Mountains rise steeply to the west. The sea presses close from the east. Here, the enormous Persian army cannot deploy its full strength. Here, numbers mean less. But even with this advantage, the Greeks understand the reality. If the Persians break through the pass, nothing will stand between Xerxes and the heart of Greece. Sparta sends one of its kings to command the defense: Leonidas. He does not bring the full Spartan army. A religious festival prevents Sparta from mobilizing all its forces, so Leonidas selects only a small detachment, 300 Spartan warriors. But these are not ordinary soldiers. Each one is an elite veteran, chosen from the best fighters in Sparta. And each one has something else in common. They all have living sons, heirs to carry on their families if they fall. The decision is deliberate. Leonidas is not planning a victory, he is preparing for a last stand. When the Spartans march north toward Thermopylae, the people of Greece watch them pass. 300 warriors in red cloaks, bronze shields, long spears, helmets crested with horsehair. They march calmly, almost casually, as if walking toward a routine patrol rather than an army that outnumbers them 20-1. Word spreads quickly through the Persian ranks. A small Greek force is waiting at the hot gates. Xerxes is amused. He has seen resistance before. Cities that believed courage could stop an empire. They all ended the same way: destroyed. When the Persian scouts report the number of defenders, the great king reportedly laughs. 300 Spartans, a few thousand allies, standing against the army of Persia. It sounds less like war and more like suicide. But Xerxes has time. He sends a message to the Greeks: lay down your weapons, submit to Persia, and your lives will be spared. Leonidas reads the message. The Persian envoy waits for his answer. The Spartan king replies with two simple words: come and take them. For 4 days, the Persian army waits outside the pass. Xerxes expects the Greeks to lose their nerve, to run, to surrender. Instead, the Persian scouts report something strange. The Spartans are not preparing to flee. They are combing their long hair, stretching, exercising, laughing. A Persian observer asks a Greek traitor what this means. The answer chills him. Spartan warriors groom their hair carefully, the man explains, before a battle they expect to die in. On the morning of the 5th day, Xerxes decides he has waited long enough. He orders the attack. The largest army on earth marches toward a narrow pass defended by only a few thousand men, and among them stand 300 Spartans. The Battle of Thermopylae is about to begin. Dawn breaks over Thermopylae. Mist hangs above the narrow coastal road, drifting between the mountains and the sea. The Persian army forms its ranks in the distance, an ocean of shields, spears, and banners stretching farther than the eye can see. Across the pass stand the Greeks, 7,000 men, farmers, soldiers, nobles, and mercenaries from across the Greek world. But at the center of the line stand the Spartans, bronze armor shining in the rising sun, red cloaks hanging from their shoulders. King Leonidas walks along the front ranks. He does not give a speech. He does not shout orders. Spartans do not require speeches. Every man here already understands what is coming. The Persians advance first. Xerxes sends forward the Medes, hardened soldiers from one of the empire's oldest provinces. Thousands of them move into the narrow pass, confident that sheer numbers will crush the defenders. They expect the Greeks to break quickly. Instead, they meet a wall. The Greek soldiers lock their shields together, forming a solid barrier of bronze and wood. Spears extend forward like a forest of iron points. The Medes crash against them. For a moment, the battle becomes chaos. Shouting, metal striking metal, bodies colliding in the confined space of the pass. But the terrain works exactly as the Greeks intended. The narrow ground prevents the Persians from surrounding them. Only a few hundred attackers can fight at once. The rest must wait behind them, trapped by their own numbers. And the Spartans fight differently than the Persians expect. Their shields are heavier, their armor thicker, their spears longer. Years of training allow them to move like a single organism. When the front ranks tire, they rotate backward and fresh warriors step forward. The Medes push again and again. And again they are thrown back. Persian arrows rain into the pass, darkening the air above the Greeks. But the heavy Spartan shields absorb the impact. The archers cannot break the formation. Hour after hour the battle continues. The Medes die by the hundreds, then by the thousands. The narrow ground becomes slick with blood. Xerxes watches from a nearby hill, seated beneath a golden canopy, surrounded by his advisors. At first he is curious, then irritated. Finally, he is furious. The Medes are supposed to be elite troops, yet they cannot break a handful of defenders, so the great king sends in his most feared soldiers, the Immortals. 10,000 warriors personally loyal to the Persian king. Their armor gleams. Their discipline is legendary. No enemy has ever stood against them for long. They march into the pass expecting victory. The Greeks are waiting. Leonidas shifts the Spartan line forward. The Immortals strike with speed and confidence. But the narrow pass denies them their greatest advantage, maneuverability. The Greek shields lock again. The Spartans thrust their spears with deadly precision. Every time a Persian soldier falls, another must climb over his body to reach the defenders. The Immortals fight fiercely, but the result is the same. They cannot break the line. Throughout the day, the Greeks use a tactic that confuses their enemies. Sometimes they pretend to retreat. The Persians surge forward, believing the defenders are finally collapsing. Then suddenly the Greeks turn, reform their shield wall, and strike again. Each time the Persians rush forward, they fall deeper into the trap. Bodies pile in the pass. The battle becomes a grinding machine of bronze and iron. By sunset, thousands of Persian soldiers lie dead or wounded. The Greek losses are shockingly small. Xerxes is stunned. He has never seen soldiers fight like this. According to ancient historians, the Persian king leaps from his throne several times during the battle, unable to believe what he is witnessing. A tiny force has stopped his army cold. The first day ends. Night falls across Thermopylae. The Persians withdraw to their camp, exhausted and humiliated. The Greeks remain in the pass they have held. On the second day, Xerxes tries again. More soldiers, more attacks, more arrows. By the end of the second day, the Persian army has suffered devastating losses, but the defenders are still standing. For the first time since the invasion began, something unthinkable has happened. The army of Xerxes, conqueror of nations, has been stopped. Word has reached the Greek cities. Time has been gained. Time that Athens needs to evacuate its people. Time that the Greek fleet needs to prepare its defenses. For the defenders at Thermopylae, the mission is already a success. Night falls over Thermopylae. The fires of the Persian camp stretch across the valley like a second sky. Behind the Greek lines, the defenders sleep lightly. 2 days of fighting have left the ground thick with bodies. The narrow pass that once seemed like a perfect defense has become a corridor of death. But in the Persian camp, something has changed. A man arrives under cover of darkness. His name is Ephialtes, a local Greek who knows these mountains better than anyone. He brings information that could end the stalemate instantly. There is a path, a narrow mountain trail known only to shepherds and hunters. It winds through the hills behind the Greek position and descends directly behind the defenders. If Persian soldiers follow that trail, they will appear behind the Greek army at dawn. The pass will become a trap. The defenders will be surrounded. Ephialtes expects a reward: gold, favor, perhaps protection when the Persians conquer Greece. Xerxes listens carefully. Then he gives the order: 10,000 soldiers, the immortals, the elite guard of the Persian king, leave the camp silently, guided by Ephialtes into the darkness of the mountains. The night is long. The path is steep and treacherous. But slowly, steadily, the Persian force climbs the hills. The next day, the battle will change, and the men defending Thermopylae will face the moment that will make them immortal in history. Phocian soldiers are stationed on the mountain path to guard it. They are meant to prevent exactly this kind of maneuver. But when the Persians approach in the early hours before dawn, something goes wrong. The Phocians are caught by surprise. Arrows rain through the trees. The sudden attack sends panic through their ranks. They retreat deeper into the mountains, abandoning the path. The immortals continue forward. By the time the sun begins to rise over Thermopylae, the Persian force is already descending the other side of the mountain, behind the Greek army. The trap is closing. Down in the pass, the defenders learn the truth. A Greek scout arrives breathless. The Persians are coming from behind. Within hours, the entire Persian army will attack from 2 directions. There is no escape. The Greek commanders gather around Leonidas. They understand the situation immediately. If they remain here, they will all die. But if the army retreats now, the Persian forces descending the mountain could trap them during the withdrawal. Panic spreads among the allied troops. Some want to flee, others want to stay and fight. Leonidas listens. Then he makes his decision. Most of the Greek army will withdraw. They have already delayed the Persians for 2 days. Their mission is complete. But someone must remain behind. Someone must hold the pass long enough for the others to escape. Leonidas chooses the Spartans. 300 warriors. Men who came to Thermopylae knowing they might never return home. They will stay. But they are not alone. 700 soldiers from the city of Thespeae refuse to abandon them, and a smaller force of Thebans remains as well. Together they prepare for the final battle. Around them, the remaining Greek troops begin their retreat through the mountains. The Spartans watch them go. No one complains. No one questions the order. Spartans are raised for this moment. For a warrior of Sparta, death in battle is not tragedy. It is the greatest honor. Leonidas walks among his soldiers as the sun rises. The Persian army begins to move again. From the front, Xerxes sends his massive forces back into the pass. From the rear, the immortals descend from the mountains. The Spartans eat their final meal. They sharpen their spears, adjust their armor. Some laugh, some pray. Some stand silently, staring toward the horizon. A Persian messenger approaches the pass once more. He brings the same offer Xerxes sent before. Lay down your weapons. Surrender. Your lives will be spared. Leonidas gives the same answer he gave days earlier. 2 words. Come and take them. The final battle of Thermopylae is about to begin. Morning sunlight spreads across the pass of Thermopylae. The air smells of blood and smoke. Where once stood an organized defensive line, the ground is now littered with broken shields, shattered spears, and the bodies of thousands of Persian soldiers from the previous days of fighting. But the defenders are fewer now. The allied Greek army has withdrawn during the night, retreating through the mountains to warn the rest of Greece. Only a small force remains. 300 Spartans, 700 Thespians who refuse to abandon them, and a few hundred Thebans whose loyalty is uncertain. Together they face the full weight of the Persian Empire. Leonidas stands before his men as the first Persian ranks appear in the distance. Behind the Spartans, the narrow pass stretches toward the mountains. Ahead lies the largest army in the world, and now that army is approaching from 2 directions. The trap is complete. The Persians attack first from the front. Wave after wave of soldiers rush into the pass, determined to crush the small band of defenders once and for all. But the Spartans still hold the narrow ground. They tighten their formation, shields locked together, spears thrust forward. For a time, the battle looks almost the same as the previous 2 days. Persians surge forward. Spartans push them back. The narrow pass still denies the Persians their numbers. Bodies fall quickly. But something has changed. The Spartans are no longer trying to survive. They are trying to kill as many enemies as possible before they die. They fight with terrifying aggression. Spears strike faster. Swords slash in brutal arcs. The Spartans push forward into the Persian ranks, forcing the attackers backward again and again. At the center of the line, King Leonidas fights alongside his men. The Persian commanders know the importance of killing him. Again and again they drive their soldiers toward the Spartan king. Finally, in the chaos of battle, Leonidas falls. The exact moment is lost in the confusion of the fight. Some say he was struck by arrows. Others say he was killed by Persian spearmen. But when the Spartans realize their king is dead, they do not retreat. They surge forward in fury. The battle around Leonidas's body becomes a desperate struggle. 4 times the Spartans drive the Persians back from the fallen king. 4 times they recover his body from the enemy. Their spears splinter from overuse. When the long Spartan spears break, they draw their short swords. When swords break, they fight with daggers. When daggers are lost, they fight with fists and teeth. The battle becomes savage. The narrow pass fills with the sounds of steel, shouting, and dying men. But the end is inevitable. From the rear, the immortals finally descend from the mountains and attack the defenders from behind. The Spartans and their allies are now completely surrounded. There is no escape. The defenders pull back to a small hill near the pass. There, they form their final line. The Spartans stand beside the Spartans. They could have fled during the night. They chose to stay. Together they prepare for the last moments of the battle. The Persian soldiers close in from every direction. The fighting continues until nearly every Greek spear and sword is broken. Finally, Xerxes orders his archers forward. Thousands of Persian bowmen form ranks around the hill. They draw their bows. One of the Spartans reportedly laughs. A Persian soldier has warned them earlier in the campaign that Persian arrows are so numerous they will darken the sky. A Spartan named Leonidas famously replied, "Then we will fight in the shade." Now the sky truly darkens. Arrows fill the air. They fall like rain. The Spartans raise their shields, but there are too many arrows. One by one, the defenders collapse beneath the storm. By midday, the hill is silent. The last Spartans of Thermopylae lie among hundreds of Persian dead. 300 Spartans have fallen. 700 Thespians have fallen beside them. But the cost to the Persian army has been staggering. Thousands of soldiers lie dead in the pass. The army of Xerxes has won the battlefield. But the victory feels strangely hollow, because what happened at Thermopylae is not a normal defeat. The Persian Empire has crushed the defenders, yet the story of those defenders is already spreading. Across Greece, travelers and messengers carry the news. 300 Spartans stood against an empire, and they did not run. They did not surrender. They fought until the very last man. The Battle of Thermopylae is over. But the war for Greece is far from finished. The Persians hold the battlefield. The narrow pass of Thermopylae is silent now, except for the wind moving through broken spears and fallen shields. The bodies of the Spartan warriors lie where they fell, surrounded by thousands of Persian soldiers who paid the price for their victory. Xerxes has achieved what he wanted. The road into Greece is open. The army of Persia marches south. Cities burn. Villages empty. And soon the Persian army reaches Athens. But Athens is not waiting. The city stands deserted. Its people have fled to the sea. Because while the Spartans were dying at Thermopylae, something else was happening. The Greek fleet was gathering. Ships from Athens, Corinth, and other city-states assembled in the narrow waters near the island of Salamis. The sacrifice at Thermopylae bought them something priceless. Time to evacuate civilians, time to unite the Greek navy, time to prepare for the real battle. Xerxes believes the war is already won. His army has marched across northern Greece. Athens burns behind him. To the Persian king, the Greeks are broken. But the Greeks are not finished. Only a few weeks after Thermopylae, the Persian fleet sails into the narrow straits of Salamis, and there the Greek navy does something almost as unbelievable as the stand of the Spartans. They destroy the Persian fleet. Ship after ship sinks in the narrow waters. Persian sailors drown. Xerxes watches the disaster unfold from a throne placed on a nearby hill. The greatest navy in the world collapses in a single day. Without naval support, the Persian army cannot safely remain in Greece. Supply lines are vulnerable. Communication with Asia becomes uncertain. For the first time since the invasion began, the Persian king hesitates. Xerxes decides to withdraw. He leaves part of his army behind to continue the campaign, but the dream of conquering all of Greece is already fading. The next year, the remaining Persian forces are defeated at the Battle of Plataea. The invasion ends. The Persian Empire never again attempts a full conquest of Greece. In the years that follow, the story of Thermopylae spreads across the ancient world. Poets write about it. Travelers visit the battlefield. A monument is raised where the Spartans fell. On it are carved the famous words, "Go tell the Spartans, stranger passing by, that here, obedient to their laws, we lie." The Spartans did not win the battle, but they did something perhaps more important. They proved that the Persian Empire could be resisted. Their stand became a symbol of courage far beyond Sparta. For the Greeks, Thermopylae was not simply a defeat. It was a reminder. Freedom sometimes survives not because victory is certain, but because someone is willing to stand and fight anyway. More than 2,400 years later, the story is still told. 300 warriors, a narrow mountain pass, and an empire forced to stop and bleed before it could move forward. History remembers many victories, but sometimes the battles that shape the world are the ones that were never meant to be won.